Welcome back to part two. I hope you enjoyed part one. I'm still joined by Julian. So carrying on from what we were talking about with Billy Joe Saunders, if he comes back, I personally think he can do something at 160 if he's got his right head on. What do you think?
I think 160 would be the weight for him. I mean, they'll bring him back at probably at 175 if it's a honestly.
Dad said he could have done 154, but he just breezed through everything at 160. Didn't he? Like he was in second gear, wasn't it?
It was brilliant early on. Was Saunders? It just like I said before. If you want to teach a young amateur how to box, how to really box, you watch videos of Billy Joe Saunders. It's phenomenal and tough as well. And he kind of had everything really. The looks, the skill, the style, and you could see when he moved up to super middleweight, it just didn't look right. His trunk was quite square. And I know everybody has different body types, but he never looked shredded, did he? He never looked absolutely ripped. People show you photographs saying, look at him there. And it's all filtered. Billy Joe Saunders' body type, he never looked shredded. And he definitely wasn't 168 pounds. Not a chance.
No, not a chance. No.
Not a chance.
Certainly. What do you see him doing if he comes back at 168 against John Ryder? Do you think that boat might have gone? Because that's a rematch, isn't it?
It's a rematch. It's not a fight I would get massively excited about. You just lose too much time.
Southpaws, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, you just lose too much time, mate, with inactivity. I always talk about activity all the time, but you can never really get it back. You'll get your sharpness back for 5, 6, 7 rounds, but when it comes to it in the trenches, he'll always fade down the stretch because he's not consistently in the gym. And this is the thing about people doing camps. I hate the word camp when people say, I'm having a camp, I'm having a camp. Your job is to be a professional boxer. It's your job to train, certainly that level. You're not going to a camp and disappear for 4 months. You look after yourself. It's your job to look after yourself. And fighters who put 2.5 stone on, 3 stone on, you're just cheating yourself ultimately. You're never going to compete consistently at the top level.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Right, what's he called? Liam Williams. He seems to have disappeared off at the scene after knocking everybody out, doesn't he? Do you think he might have retired, or I thought he was a good fight?
They just sometimes get beat out and they just go into almost like the sulk. They just go sulking for 12 months. Is a difficult one. Is Williams. I don't rate him that highly, if I'm being honest. I think he's a domestic level operator, and I don't know what he's up to and where he's at. I'm interested to see what Eubank Jr. is going to do next, because we keep hearing about who he's going to fight and who he's not going to fight, and it's like
Eubank Jr. I'm not being funny, but he is the most inactive person I've ever known. I mean, who's his best win as well?
Yeah, he's playing at boxing, isn't he? I mean, Groves really schooled him, didn't he?
Salads run around, and obviously everybody who's worked with Eubanks have found him difficult, haven't they? Everybody.
Massively, yeah. I've heard stories about them all the time, and just certain things. Like I know Frank Hopkins knows them well, and I know Frank from the circuit, and they're not the easiest people to deal with. They make demands, and this might sting a few people. I'm going to just go back a few years now, but Chris Eubank Senior really benefited from a lot of gift decisions and a lot of publicity and exposure during his time because he was an eccentric. But yep. And what happened with this won't go down well. I mean, Nigel Benn had a great win against McClellan, and Eubank beat Ben, but ultimately those guys, they avoided the Tonys, the Joneses, and the Michael Nunns and the Frankie Lyles and all those guys. They avoided them.
Crawford Ashley didn't, did he?
Oh, Crawford Ashley went in with Virgil and Michael Nunn, and more power to him. But these guys, it became like the WBO was a British title for about 10 years.
That's why they won't sanction it, innit? Ring Magazine at one point and say it's one of the main belts, wouldn't they, for years?
Well, look at Steve Collins. Steve Collins was a solid fighter, but he'd been schooled twice, hadn't he, before he fought Eubank? He'd been was it Reggie Johnson and maybe Sambu Kalambe? They both schooled him. So
Graham, though, isn't he? Kalambe, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah, it was a good fight. It was Kalambe, wasn't he? That was the first one to beat Bomber, wasn't he? But you know what I'm saying about basically about the elite world champion. So
That was
Collins
a
was
European title, that wasn't it? That was a proper
yeah,
European title fight, wasn't it? Imagine that level compared to now.
yeah. Bomber Graham and Sambu Kalambe,
And Salambo Colombo would be like pound for pound now, wouldn't they? In middleweights, wouldn't
they'd be unifying belts, mate.
they?
They'd be
Unifying belt. Bomber Graham now will be unifying belts. I
yeah.
think Johnny Nelson might at cruiserweight from what I've been looking at it. It's a shambles, isn't it?
I think John Nelson would beat Okoli, Lawrence Okoli. I think he'd beat him all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not massive on Nelson, but I just don't rate Okoli. I think yeah, he's got his Olympic pedigree, but I just don't rate him. I think he's bloody awful.
Yeah.
Who's he beat? Come on, who's Lawrence Okoli beat?
I don't know. I turned off from him after I saw that Matty Asquin fight. I couldn't understand how he weren't disqualified.
I
No
know.
matter took off him. Why weren't he disqualified?
Most frustrating night for any boxer ever, Matty Askin.
Couldn't believe I seen that on Sky Sports and looking at that referee. I forgot who it were, and everybody, one of them won it. And do you know what?
Yeah.
That Matty Askin, I think boxing must have drained out of him that night.
Yeah.
With the performance, because look what he were fighting, like an octopus. Yeah. And how officials dealt with that. And that's boxing for you. That's the bad side of it, isn't it?
Oh, it's horrendous. I always remember Brian McGee was dirty as well, was the super middleweight Brian McGee. Remember him, the Irish guy?
He tried it with Frotch a few times. He ended up like being left on an heap in round.
It was the headlock, wasn't it? It was
Just watch this. Frotch versus McGee YouTube, round 11. Go watch that. And go watch what Adam Smith says afterwards. Yeah, go on.
I'll have to watch that. But I always remember McGee, it was a bloody spoiler, wasn't it? He would jab, cross, grab, headlock. A bit like the Hatton thing. Hatton was always a master of headlock. Yeah, I'll have to watch that one.
Do you know what got him through that fight? And he'll tell you this, Cobra. His uppercut. Because he put McGee down with uppercut earlier on. And McGee changed his style. And you know, at the end, when Frotch finished him off and left him in an heap, he landed on Frotch's feet. Have you seen it? He landed
it's been a while.
Frotch's feet, and Carl kicked the body off his feet, didn't he?
It's been a while since I've seen it, but it's one of those. I think one of the commentators.
They all said he had swagger after that. That's when it started to come out about the swagger and that, because he had a bit of swag, didn't he, Cobra? I'm not saying he was high-followed him from the beginning, but I swear to God, when he used to come into the arena, mate, your hair stood up on your arms, and you don't get that now, do you, with some fighters, do you?
Yeah. I thought the Cobra was arrogant. He came across as being arrogant.
Well, he had to be, didn't he? Selfish, arrogant, all them things, didn't he, to be the Cobra? Otherwise, he would have been a worm, wouldn't he?
Was it the first time I really took notice of him? Was it? I mean, it was only domestic level. Was it Damien Haig who he smashed?
Damien Haig was fucking shouting his mouth off all over.
That's it.
We're going to knock him out of that because he's been an heavy guy back in the day and all that. I think he's a Derby kid as well. So he's
tough kid was Damien Haig.
Actually. Tough kid. He'd won a WBF, hasn't he?
He was a hard lad.
A WBF minor belt. Anyway, he got in with Cobra, didn't he? And you saw what happened, didn't you?
He wiped him out, didn't he?
He wiped him out, mate.
Yeah, I remember that one.
But he wiped him out, mate. And the interview after, he said something about if you want to take me on, you've seen what happens, so train hard or something. Well, I were nearby when that was said, like that, like a fucking panting dog.
So
only thing missing was my train spotting book. Oh, I've just seen it open.
So who's got that mentality now?
Pocket, you mate.
Who's got that mentality now then in British fighters? Who's? I know you get sticks. He's your mate. But yeah, my mate Stuart always calls him a modern day Rocky Marciano.
It's not like that in real life, though.
No, but who's got that mentality of we'll fight anybody? We'll fight absolutely anybody.
Like he did, one after the other.
One after the other.
Well, I think he did that because he looked at it as wasting a camp and then going and fighting a knockover. He didn't want that. He didn't want trinket belts. There's no trinket belts on his record. You know that?
No, not at all.
None of that. He didn't believe in any of that. He believed in old school, British outright. Commonwealth, learn your craft. I want Commonwealth event, British outright, and then go for European. But Sanabea won't fight him. So, but he won number one, and in Pascal 1 and 2, and Calzaghe vacated. So why go for European if you can get a WBC? But look, I think it's because he didn't want to waste camps. And plus, you get yourself noticed more, and he wanted to set a precedent that so that people followed it. And obviously, it didn't work out, did it really, for anyone from this country? So, no. Joshua, you could say he's had a lot of world title fights on top, but not that caliber. No, I think he might have been a bit lucky, Carl. I think Carl was lucky, though, with that caliber, because when you think about it, before he even went for a world title, he'd been in with McGee and Robin Reed, world champions, before he'd even been in for a world title. Then he's gone in with Pascal, who went on to beat Diacono, took his O, took Chad Dawson's O. This is after Froch done Pascal. Moved on from Pascal to Jermaine Taylor, first defense in America, who's just Jeff Lacey's second loss. Taylor's former pound for pound star, wasn't it? Middleweight, beat up.
Good fighter.
He knocked him out in 12th, didn't he? After that, he's gone for undefeated Andre Dirrell, Olympic medalist. Do you know what I mean? He squeaked by him in a stinker, didn't he? That was a stinker on it. That.
Dirrell was a good fighter, though. Technically very good.
Good style, but awful. Sorry, he has got ability, but an awful style. So in it,
yeah.
After that, who were there after that? Kessler, lost to Kessler in Denmark.
Yeah, he got beat by Kessler. Did he come back against Abrahams then?
Come back against Abraham in Finland, schooled him. Glenn Johnson beat him. Who were after Glenn Johnson? Ward, lost to Ward. Then Bute took his O.
Then we Groves, didn't we?
Then we had Youssef Mack.
Yes.
IBF number 4 or number 5. Then we had Kessler rematch, done him. And then he did Groves, took Groves as well. So there's 8 O's in there if you had them all up.
The Kessler rematch was a good fight. That was a really good fight. The Kessler fight was a good fight. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah. All good fights, aren't they?
Kessler was a good fighter, though.
But you know, out of all them fights there, you could say like 14, 15 top fights, right? There's 14 or 15 pay-per-views on that CV, judging by today's, right? So he can feel shortchanged, Carl Froch, can't he, really? But he tried to set the precedent, didn't he? But it's not his fault if fighters want to be businessmen, is it, and not fighting men?
But you go into his house and he's got the belts that matters, and people talk about him with a fondness. It wasn't number 1 pound for pound in the world, but it was always kind of maybe one of the 10 best fighters in the world, wasn't it, at any point?
Pound for pound number 5 or 6, wasn't he, Ring Magazine? I've got it.
I think it was definitely up there, but I just think there's something for me about, you got to look after your health and that type of thing. But ultimately, he got out at the right time. He made his money. But there's nobody, like you go to certain fighters, he avoided him and he avoided him. Nobody sees Carl Froch, do they, and say, he ducked so-and-so, he ducked so-and-so. He gets the respect from everybody for stepping up.
You get idiots that say, oh, I ducked James DeGale, and I always say, James DeGale, right? This is when I do slate people. So James DeGale, can you imagine him starting ropes against Froch? So the Groves done James DeGale twice. Froch just cleaned the Groves out twice. I said, so why would you say James DeGale? James DeGale's CV porky. I said, oh, then James DeGale's best 2 wins, Andre Dirrell and Bute, who took their O's? Carl Froch.
Yeah, DeGale wasn't in his league.
The case against the prosecutor, the defendant dismissed.
Yeah, it wasn't in his league whatsoever.
He would have run over. Listen, I'm not being funny, mate. You know what? Ask Carl Froch what's the best way to fight a southpaw. He'll say, don't let him get into a rhythm.
Yeah, jump on them.
The only thing, he jumped on Bute. Why do you want to let him get into a rhythm and pick you off?
It was so awkward, though, was Froch, wasn't it? He used to do one thing that drove me nuts, as a trainer. He'd throw that right hand and he'd take his right foot with him. It was like he'd square up. Round. It was like, he'd square up, but it worked for him. It was an orthodox. It was quite rigid.
Yeah, he's setting traps all the time, though, to try and get some sort of fight going, innit? In the fight, Julian. You know what I mean? He was taking risks and stuff like that to draw him on and that. That's what it's all about.
His feet were very good. His jab would come from the hip, wouldn't it? He'd push that stiff jab from the hip.
Do you know Robin Reed showed us a jab like a seminar thing at Peter Fury's gym in Bolton, and what he was showing us, he he sat everybody down. He says, right, do you all know who the Motor City Cobra is? Well, he says, Tommy Hitman, and he says, but back in the day, when Robin was, he used to be called the Motor City Cobra, and he was showing that whip. I used to whip that jab up.
Yeah.
And he was showing Savannah, Yui, and a couple of other fighters that, just to add something to the game. Whether they take it on board or not, it's up to them, innit? But and Savannah, you notice Savannah, she uses that. Savannah, I always call Savannah with low left. She likes to do that every now and then.
Waves it under the eye level and then
every now and then, you can whip it up and that, can't you? Well, Robin Reed thinks that's a really good jab, because George Groves is another one who uses that, and George Groves has got a fantastic jab, hasn't he? I know he's
brilliant jab.
And I have rubbed him up wrong way, but George Groves is up there, one of the greatest jabs of all time with Larry Holmes, isn't that jab? Oh.
Well, they were really good. They had good balance, and you need to have great balance for a jab, because it's the one shot you can throw while you're moving. But there are different type of jabs, aren't there? And that's the thing when I'm coaching, is like there's the jab that you can move when you're on the back foot, the flick out the jab and touch, and then there's a ring center jab. There's the dominant jab like a Holmes jab, and then there's almost that offensive jab, like you just said, the Thomas Hearns, the George Groves.
Well, it's whipped straight into perspex, isn't it? But he whips it from his waist, and it comes straight here every time, doesn't it, into perspex, or it comes up. You don't know which and it's hard to judge, isn't it? I've been told as well. Like, what Frank Bruno are like that, aren't they? A bit easy to judge, aren't they?
It's about your balance, and it's about your position in the ring. So I don't mean to patronize anybody who's listening, but when you throw a jab, there's the technical correct way of throwing it, like the England boxing guys will throw it. But if you think about Ali would throw the jab, and he would almost be like sat on his back foot, and he would flick it, and he would pull away from it. And then you've got the guys who hold the ring center, like a Lennox Lewis, who he'd extend his feet, he'd have wider feet, he'd hold ring center, and he'd throw it from the shoulder. And then you had the Thomas Hearns and the George Groves type who would push more weight onto the front foot. So the push onto the front foot, and then it became a really solid offensive weapon. So the general viewpoint is you have to have equal balance on both feet for the jab. But Ali disproved that. Naz disproved it to some extent when he would box southpaw. And like you just said, that Thomas Hearns and what Robin Reed was showing people is putting a little bit more weight on that front foot, and that's really hard to do. So if you put your weight onto the front foot for a solid jab, you have to have range, you have to have reach. Shorter guys can't do that because they're just walking onto a backhand or something else. But if you've got the range or the reach of a Hearns or a Groves, and you've got the reflexes, then you can afford to just put a little bit more weight on the front foot.
Roch says that when you go in, like when they go, because they're like, you can move your arm and that, because it's low and that. He says, and it can blur the vision, and they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's the feint. They can turn it, can't they? And there's a really good example of how they can turn that shot into a left hook. It was when Thomas Hearns fought Duran. There was a moment in the second round when Hearns, in the first round, before the first knockdown, and Tommy's throwing a couple of left jabs, and then all of a sudden Duran kind of half steps forward, and Tommy just turns it into a long hook. It's a kind of beautiful thing that when I watch it, it's like there's very few fighters can actually. I said this to Max recently. Very few fighters can hook off the jab, and that's the beauty of what Carl Froch was saying. Is if you wave the hand about, you can turn it into an up jab, a slam jab, a touch jab, but you can also turn it into.
You have a variety of your arsenal there instead of just a jab, don't you? Or even like like just a jab to waist or up, but you can do many things off it, can't you? Like hook or uppercut.
And that's what Larry Holmes used to do those little tricks. So he'd touch the chest and he'd drop the right hand over the top, or he'd just touch above the eyes and then he'd throw the right hook, or he'd come around the outside because he'd just temporarily just blind them.
As a throwaway jab, you mean a throwaway punch? Just disguise the one that's coming.
Yeah, I read Emmanuel Stewart once said that Manny Stewart says whenever you throw a telegraph punch, so a telegraph punch would be, for those who don't know, it'd be a right hook or a right uppercut. It's effectively a shot that you can see. They say it's an insult to catch someone with an orthodox fight with a right hook because it's telegraphed. And what Emmanuel Stewart always said was, there's 4 points of a jab. There's the abs, there's the chest, there's the chin, and then there's the eyes. And it's something that we did with Sykes when he fought Crawley, because I read that Manuel Stewart always said, whenever you want to get off a right uppercut or a right hook, jab the eyes, but just slow it down. So effectively, you're blinding the eyes. And that way, Larry Holmes used to do it. He used to throw the fast jab to the chin to bring the back glove down to throw the overhand right. But then what he used to do, he'd throw a slower, softer jab to the eyes so he could get the right hook off. And I just think it's something that it fascinates me, does the jab, because England boxing and most boxing coaches just teach the basic rotation jab, the standard England boxing jab.
I think it's up to a lot of boxers to like design their own type of jab, in it, really. They can work on it themselves, what they want, what they feel like, that, can't they, really?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
he just called his St. Cobra because of that, mate. Mainly, I used to whip his jab up.
And if you watch a Cobra,
that's why it's called the Cobra, yeah.
If you watch the Cobra, they will strike really quickly, wouldn't they? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's Brian McGee.
Yeah, I might watch that tonight actually, because I don't sleep.
It's a good fight. Hey, listen, they go at it. You know, bad blood as well. Maxi Hughes against Kid Galahad. I've been told it's close. Galahad going to step up. It's all that's about for him at the moment. Blah blah blah.
That's a big jump for him in weight, then, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow, that surprised me. I think Maxi will be too big for him.
Yeah,
probably a little bit. I mean, Galahad's a top level fighter, but you're coming off a
£5. Going up £5, is it? But he's already just moved up a weight as well, hasn't he?
So he's gone to 9'4". So he's going up to lightweight then. So I remember Maxi Hughes used to be in the early days. I remember when he was. Is he not 10 stone?
He's done well, Maxi Hughes, hasn't he? He has done well.
Yeah, he's done brilliant, mate. That whole camp and the whole team, the way they've changed that lad's fortunes.
Hey, Maxi, he's done really well, mate. I'm telling you now. He's got IBO belt now.
I've seen him spar 30-40 rounds. Good fighter.
Maxi Hughes, don't let any dickheads tell you you're not a world champion. You've got an IBO belt at home like Robin Reed, Manny Pacquiao, Lennox Lewis, Roy Jones. Mayweather's got one, I think, as well, has he? So
got everything. It's flawless.
You're a world champion, Maxi Hughes. Don't let anybody else tell you any different. IBO.
The most important thing with Maxi Hughes is that he's making money. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, but he's a world champion as well now, so it's all about money for him now. I hope he gets millions.
I hope he's making good money.
I remember when nobody gave a toss about him.
I said to me, I used to come to Central Boxing Club and spar. I think I've got some old videos of him sparring a kid called Tony Aitchison, who used to train, who was a big punching light welter. And Maxi was just clever. Him and Sykes probably sparred 50, 60 rounds. You know, might have sparred 8-9 times. And
he was on top in them rounds.
It was difficult because Maxi hadn't kind of found his pattern at that point, and he didn't have that belief that he's got now. And Sykes was obviously the ABA champion and unbeaten, so Sykes would have had the pace on him. But
Sykes
Gary
was beast at one point in his career, wasn't he? He were rampaging through everybody at one point. Well,
it was brilliant, mate. But Maxi was a southpaw, and Gary hated southpaws. He just couldn't get his head around them at all.
Yeah. Dalton Smith against Samo Mason. Not Dalton bad, Smith. Is it? Dalton Smith obviously by KO, but Samo Mason, you know, his game is durable.
I think Dalton Smith's one of the best prospects in Britain. I'm not just saying that because I know his dad well.
Sam's tough though. Samo Mason is a tough kid.
Yeah, it's a hard fight, probably a points win, but Dalton Smith's got a brilliant balance, great artillery, he's got a good pedigree, he's got a massively underrated coach in his dad. I'm saying that because I do know him well, but he's one to watch. I'll be surprised if he doesn't go on and fight for world titles.
Well, the quiet word behind the scenes were that it should have been him who were ring trainer at year, but he's not one of them that shuts his mouth off like, you know what I mean, certain people, is he? So
like I said, I actually bought
not big magazine trainer at year, the British trainer at year. Sorry,
because he had the Edwards brothers, didn't he? He had some really good amateurs. He's paid his dues as Grant, and he's technically very good. And he takes no shit, you know. He takes absolutely no shit.
That gym with Chris Smedlers, you know, that gym.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, it was Smedlers that they Steel City. It was Chris as he set all that up, Chris. Then give it up.
We used to go over there. Sykes went over there and sparred. I'm trying to think of the kid, kid called Scott something, blonde kid. I forget his name. I forget his name, and they used to go over there and spar him and at Grant's, and a couple of times Kid Galahad were over there sparring with Dom, and we used to have some good sparring at Grant's gym. He's a good guy. He's a great coach.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't really know him, like, but you know him.
He's sound bloke.
Yeah. People telling Del Boy to retire. There's a lot of videos, a lot of chat about it today. Should he retire? Scotch told him to, didn't he? A couple of other people have. Dave Caldwell, is it? Dave Caldwell's not going no more, though, has he?
I wondered what happened, actually. Yeah, he's yeah, I mean, he moves around coaches, doesn't he? He keeps going back to Don Charles, doesn't he? It's like the prodigal son thing, non-stop going back to Don Charles. It's a bizarre relationship, actually, is that one. But I think I've no disrespect to Don Charles or anybody, but I've said
he's had him back 5 times, and is it 6?
But what really, if you look at, he does nothing different.
Don Charles was a brass, isn't it? He's brassed himself off there on his 6 times.
Yeah. You're never going to improve Chisora. I said this about Dave Caldwell, and I know Dave, it wasn't being rude. I said, you won't improve Chisora a dot. He's so ingrained in what he does, and he's so good at what he does, actually, that what are you actually going to do apart from condition Derek Chisora?
What trainer in his right mind has a fighter back 6 times that broke his heart every time and gone elsewhere, and then Megado, and he's missed out, and he's put all heavy lifting in?
I would have him back once. I would have him back. I've had fighters over the years who have wanted to move on. I said, get yourself off. Good luck to you. But then when they ring you up a few weeks later, can they come back? Fuck off. We're better off without you. It's like,
is that what you said?
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to name names, but people do what they want. It's up to them. It's no big deal. I don't do it for money anyway. So I've always been able to just do what I want, and that's what not everybody loves.
I can't imagine Mick Whale training somebody and leaving him and going and earning millions, then going back and forward all that time. Mick would have wrung his neck.
Yeah. I always, I always admired what I know what.
I thought Don Charles was all right, but Don Charles now, we ought to bring an award out, didn't we? Brass of the Month.
Pound notes,
with Don Charles's face on trophy, man.
Pound notes.
Jesus, man. Talk about being abused, Don. Hey? Unbelievable. Deontay Wilder against Ortiz Ruiz winner is his comeback fight, apparently, according to PBC Gossip Vines.
Why does he have to wait for somebody to...
He's already been in with Ortiz fucking twice, hasn't he?
Yeah, well,
is it once? No, twice, didn't it? He did him twice.
Just, this is the problem, though, isn't it? They won't get out of bed for less than 20 million, will they? This is where Tommy Fury gets his bullshit from, because, do you know what? You want to come back, Deontay, just have a few knockover jobs. Stop waiting for the big name and just crack a few heads and then get back.
Yeah.
What is he waiting for? Why are they waiting for big names and big money? I don't understand it.
I don't, mate. I don't.
Can you remember Julio Cesar Chavez? How he had 2 or 3 he had 2 or 3 non-title fights in between each title fight, didn't he?
Yeah.
And Chavez would, when he was a multi-millionaire and he was fighting the likes of Whittaker, if you look at Chavez's records, absolutely loads of non-title fights. They were effectively glorified sparring in bull rings, and he would just beat up people in 3 or 4 rounds to keep his tools sharp. So Cesar Chavez was the biggest fighter in the world at that point. He was the highest paid fighter in the world. And he literally would have the non-title fights. Check his record out.
200,000 every fight, though, don't they? When he fights up in them days, didn't they?
Well, that's it. But Chavez wouldn't earn massive money for the non-title fights. He believed in keeping his tools sharp. And that's why when he got in with the likes of Greg Haugen and those guys, he smashed them to pieces because he was always sharp and he was always active. So Deontay Wilder, why are fighters not following in the footsteps of the greats who kept busy all the time?
Yeah, I agree. Who is this kid Archie Sharp? Because, like, we don't see much about him, do we? He's 21 and 0, 27-year-old. Apparently, he's not with Bricks. I don't even know. I don't usually miss stuff like that. There's never see any news about him, do we? Who is this kid? Is somebody going to start promoting him properly? He's the real deal.
He's not a bad kid, is he? He's got some good fast hands. He's active. You know what I mean? When I mean inactive, I mean when he's in the ring.
Fight for a British title now, though, when you're 21 and 0.
yeah, it's time, isn't it? It really is time to push forward. I mean, fighters really now, if they've got any pedigree, they're doing it after 9, 10, 11, 12 fights, aren't they? But you just wonder, don't you?
About it.
Is there something behind the scenes that we're not seeing? Because two things happen. Whenever you see a fighter who's not active, and you're like, what happened to him? Why is he not boxing? He's a good kid. Him. There's two reasons. One, he just doesn't sell tickets, or two, he doesn't live the life. And that I'm not saying that's the thing with Archie Sharp, but sometimes when promoters don't push fighters, it's because they don't push themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Conor Benn, Chris Eubank. The quiet whisper is they're going to fight at 155.
Don't believe it.
Gareth A. Davis has seen it on TalkSport.
Okay, that must be true if the Gad's spoken out then.
What do you think to the Gad's Illuminati tattoo on his arm? Do you think he's been exposed now as what he is?
You see, I'm smiling again. I just smiled. It's the best name. It's your best one. The Gad is the greatest name. And people call him it now, don't they? People in the industry.
Frank Warren called him it, didn't he? Live on air, didn't he? He beat it out.
Yeah.
Team Big Top.
Go on, Frank. Frank's brilliant. Yeah.
What about Audley calling Adam Smith Bean? Bean. Who's Bean?
I've heard that audio. Who's Bean? Yeah.
He knows now, doesn't he? Oh, why are you calling Bean? Well, Audley, it's because he looks like Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean, of course.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, I don't think Conor Benn's going to fight. I mean, I don't think Eubank Jr. could do 154, but people do a lot for a lot of money, won't they?
yeah, Ben Shalom. I'll finish off on these last two. Ben Shalom and the Mark Tibbs one. Hang on, so we'll do Ben Shalom one first. Ben Shalom seems to have ruffled a few feathers, hasn't he, recently? There's been a couple of legal letters flying about on that. I've heard stories about him approaching fighters and stuff who are in contract. I think that's ballsy, me, because it does go on. You know that, don't you, Julian?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
He ran him. I know he's been handing business cards out. I know a few people that have told me. So good luck to him, because he's having to get down dirty like they are. Because Eddie took out fighters, so I ain't got a problem with that, Ben. But he just come over as a bit wooden, doesn't he? For a young lad, he's a bit wooden and a bit, old before his time kind of thing, isn't he? You know what I mean?
We'll see what he's like in 5-10 years' time. It'll be like a hard-bitten promoter, won't
You know what it reminds me of? Do you know that William Hague?
Oh, the Tory MP?
Yeah, he went to be Tory MP leader, one who went to be
proud. I do remember him, actually.
Well, William Hague is like, I can explain it. He when he was 16, he behaved like a 30-year-old.
Yeah, he was on early TV and news programs and stuff.
A 14, 15-year-old going to Tory conferences and mingling with them all and wow. Well, at school and that, they terrorised him, didn't they? Because they thought he was a freak. He was walking around with a briefcase and that. Well, he reminds me, he's one of them, isn't he, that Ben Shalom?
But I'm all right with Ben. As long as he's putting the fights on that we want. They've done Marshall and Shields. They've done Khan and Brook, albeit 10 years too late. That's not his fault. I don't care if they're giving us what we want. Doesn't make a difference to me what he's like.
Doesn't to me, but yeah, okay. And the last one, I think people keep asking me, is Mark Tibbs training Ellie Brook? I thought, what was that? And I know now who it is. It's I think Max told me. It's a TikTok porn star or something. I don't know. Some whatever porn star. Anyway, he got in touch and he's left me a voicemail, a voice text. I'm not going to play it, but he just says he has been training and he has to do a favour and help her out and that. And apparently he says she's half all right fighting, like. So
I'm shocking.
Almighty Chris, I'm a bit disappointed, to be honest. I'm like, but if he's not got a big stable, or if he's got time and you can do it and you can pinch a few quid, why not? If that's your job, innit?
Do you know what? I've said this before, right? I like Jimmy Tibbs.
I can't get my head around it.
Jimmy Tibbs, immense coach. Good.
I couldn't see Jimmy putting up with anything like that.
But do you know where it is?
Times change, don't they? But
times change. I'm a little bit old-fashioned, right? But ultimately, I've said this before. If boxing doesn't care about boxing, we can't expect those in the sport to care about it either. So look, when you've got, I keep saying the same fucking thing, when you got fighters getting in the ring in fishnet tights, all bets are off. It's just like, it's gone. You know, I mean, what Bruce Woodcock and those guys would have thought about boxing today.
Yeah, but I can tell you a quick Bruce Woodcock story. You know the one about it, Bruce Woodcock and his mates pushing that car over at North Bridge at Donny. You heard that one, haven't you? When they were dressed as women, on the heels on and wigs and everything. Yeah,
no, I've not heard that.
Story that, yeah. So it's about 1960 though. He'd been retired like and that. But
yeah.
Bruce Woodcock, yeah, it's a true story, but but yeah, they're awful hard men, weren't they?
Tough men, mate. I mean, who knows what would have been of social media in those days, but I think back to the, like when I were boxing amateur and the likes of the Keith Tates and stuff, they were uncompromising, tough men who spoke in a certain way, and I don't know what they'd make of all this stuff now. I genuinely don't. But you're right, times change. I'm trying to change with them, and if it gets on my nerves that much, I just don't watch it. I don't watch a lot of the build-up now. I pick and choose what I watch. There are some fights I'll watch Ryan Garcia. I like watching that kid. I like watching Tank Davis. There's fights I'll still enjoy watching, mate. But it's when the biggest subject is the likes of Jake Paul and Tommy Fury, fucking Tyson Fury's retired, you know.
Oh, and on that note.
And on that note, yeah.
Tyson Fury retired, and then what's 500 million? Now he says he'll fight for free.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Tyson Fury will be back out in 6 months fighting Usyk.
For 20 million. There you go.
Yeah. And I hope he does.
Right, I do. Listen, you take
care.
Then, Paul. Thanks for coming on.
No worries, mate. Thank you, everybody, for watching. You take care.
Bye. Well, that's about it, really. Bedtime. I'm shattered today, man. Shattered. Beaten up. All right, everybody have a good week. Peace out.